I guess it was just more of a personal evolution as well as a business one. And then wanting to take it into that next step of, I guess, more meaning to the designs that I create. So organic, sustainable, natural, raw, really to my core essence of what I love. And then showing people that you don't just have to have that when you go away on holiday, you can have it at home. You can have that feeling all the time.
Welcome to Imprint, a podcast about creating a home and life you love. I'm Natalie Walton, an interior designer, stylist, and best-selling author focused on an holistic approach to homes. Each week, I'm sharing insights and interviews about the creative process to help you enhance both your interiors and well-being, as well as provide you with the tools and resources to make considered and sustainable choices with all that you create. Hello everyone, welcome to Imprint. I'm looking forward to sharing my conversation today with Mon Palmer. Some of you may know her through Instagram and the work that she shares on there. She is from a landscape design background and has done SketchUp courses. We will link to everything in the show notes. That is how I came across her work originally, but more recently, she has evolved her business into focusing on a boutique accommodation, Airbnb and acreage properties, and taking a more holistic approach to blending the interiors and the exteriors, and also just a more holistic approach in terms of her design philosophy. And we talk about how her business has evolved, how she's learned to charge for her services, what works well for her. She shares some great insights as well into how to make the most of your exterior spaces and has got some really great tips and advice on that. So please enjoy my conversation with Mon Palmer. Hi Mon, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. I'm really curious to learn more about your journey. I'm a huge fan of your work and the things that you create. And I would just love to dig straight into, first of all, a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and if you were a creative as a child. I think that's always interesting to know. So maybe you can shine a little bit of a light on that part of your journey.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me so much. I'm such a fan of yours as well. Love your work, love your store. I was actually down south in the south of Western Australia, because I'm from Perth, in Denmark, and we stayed at this beautiful farm stay called Upland Farm. And when I arrived there, one of your books was actually on the coffee table. And I said to my friend, oh my God, this is the lady who's going to be interviewing me soon. So it was so beautiful. And so I'm just, when I heard from you, I was just so thrilled. A little bit nervous because, I want to do this justice. But so thank you so much for having me here. So my journey, it's quite winding and long. It wasn't really, I never really thought I was going to be a creative when I was growing up. So I was very maths and science based, and I wanted to be a zoologist. It was like my lifelong dream. I love animals. I love nature and outdoors. But life took a little bit of a different turn when I was in high school or school. I moved around a few different schools, and I just didn't really, I was meant to study, to do zoology. I actually got in all of the subjects to get into uni. But then in year 11, things kind of changed and life took a different path. And then once that had happened, then my creative side started to come out, which was very rare for me, because when I was growing up, I would stay away from theatre, art, all of that kind of stuff at school. I was petrified of it. And I think it was maybe when I went travelling and lived overseas and lived in London for a while. And I just, maybe because I'm from Perth in Western Australia, we're so isolated here. And I just started seeing life in a different way. And as life journeys go, things change. And when I lived in London, I was working for a real estate company, and I just became fascinated with how people lived in their spaces. England and Europe was so different from Perth. And we have a lot of space here. We have beautiful weather, and I just wondered why we didn't make the most of it. And so I started to fall in love with landscape design. And in London, garden design is such an age-old profession. And so, yeah, when I was over, my brain just started thinking about how I could bring this kind of profession back into Perth, in WA, and then Australia. So, yeah, and then when I came home, I studied for a while, studied landscape design, and then the journey continued from there.
So did you start working for somebody when you came back, or did you straight away just start doing your own business?
So when I came back, I was actually too scared to start studying. So I came back, I had a mortgage in that time. So I had like an investment property, and I just couldn't make that cut from going from full-time work to then studying again, because it would have to be full-time study. I was wanting to do landscape design. And when I first came back, they didn't actually have a recognised qualification in Perth for landscape design. There was either landscape architecture, which I didn't want to be commercial based. I wanted to work with homes. And there was also horticulture in landscaping at TAFE. So after a while, I was working for a travel consultancy, Flight Centre, for many years. And I was doing that while, I guess kind of being too scared to take the plunge. And then after a few years, I was like, you know what, I need to follow my passion. And then I quit full-time work. I started working at Bunnings in the nursery department to get some, because I had no idea about plants. I'd never really grown up on a farm or land or had any kind of experience in it. I just knew I wanted to do it. So I got a job in the nursery department at Bunnings and started to kind of learn about plants, horticulture, and full-time study at TAFE. So with the horticulture course, it was, I think I was one of two girls in the class, and it was horticulture, it was landscaping in horticulture, I think it was called, and we did construction. So we would, build limestone walls, lay reticulation, lay lawn, do planting, build decks and stuff like that. So I had a ute, had a wheelbarrow, had all the tools. So I started from the ground up, I guess, in that. And that has really helped in terms of going into design, understanding the fundamentals of construction. And then while I was studying, I had some friends ask about, can I do their garden? Can I design their space? And so I launched my own business while studying.
Okay. I love that though. Like, I love the fact that you, you kind of got a job in the relevant field. And because my background, like way back when, is that I actually worked at a paint store. So kind of like, I do think that those early threads, it's always interesting to see like where you end up and how it all pays off, so to this day, things that I learned while working in that paint store, it still applies to what I'm doing today, and I did that for over 5 years while I was at university. So it's, it's really interesting to see the threads.
Yeah. I love that. And at the time for you, you may have loved, but it may not have made complete sense. For me, it didn't make sense. When I was studying, I got bullied a lot by the guys in the class, because a lot of them there were just wanting to get their permanent residency here in Australia. So it was one of those, I think, courses that you could do if you were from another country, and then you could get permanent residency if you do that, because I think not many people wanted to do this course at TAFE. And so I used to get a lot of would you call it sexual harassment? But, they would say, oh, you're a girl, you're going to break your fingernail. You can't do that because you're a girl. It was really, it was the hardest 2 years of, not of my life, because I've had many hard journeys, but, of resilience and sticking in there. I had moved around from so many jobs from when I left school to, before finding out what it was that I was passionate about. And when I had made this decision to leave full-time work and go to full-time study, I made a commitment to myself to see it through. and to not always be jumping around. And I think, you know, the pressure that I got from those people and just feeling like such an outsider, it was so hard, but it built up a lot of resilience. And I'm so glad I stuck at it because I'm still doing it now. But yeah, they were really testing times. And I was so broke. And I just, you know, it was hard to even, I had to sell the house in the end because I couldn't afford to pay the mortgage and go to school and do all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm glad I dug my heels in and kept at it, because it was, yeah, at the time it wasn't fun at all, but I knew it was going to be worth it in the end.
And I bet it's really served you well as well. Not only the lessons that you learned, you know, obviously in terms of the skills, but being able to go onto a site and be confident in front of trades, in front of, you know, guys who maybe sort of see you walking in and thinking like, oh, you know, because there can still be a little bit of that kind of attitude. And I'm sure it served you really well to have that, to have that resilience of being able to stand your own ground and sort of know that you've got that foundation within you.
Yeah, I'm so, you know, and we talk about, you know, certain threads and things that happen in your life. A lot of it doesn't make sense at the time. And I kind of had to look after myself while growing up. So again, a lot of that, like having to just fall back on yourself and not having to rely on others. And, you know, that's kind of what happened when I was studying. I was kind of used to having to just pick it up myself and just get through it. So, and again, even like you were saying, in the industry, and when I started in the industry in landscape design and construction, it was very male dominated. It's great to see it changing. You know, I think I studied like 13, 14 years ago or something like that. And yeah, it does, you know, it's allowed me to let it sort of wash off me when that happens. But it still does happen now a lot.
Mm. So then what happened? So you studied, you were doing your part-time work, or maybe even full-time, but you were juggling the two sides, you know, of studying and work. And like you said, you started to take on some small projects. Did you then go and work for somebody else for a period, or did you straight away then launch into your own business?
So I then launched into my own business, and then I went into partnership with someone who I had studied with. We had done a display garden at Garden Week in Perth, nothing like the Melbourne one. It was the first time it had ever come here, actually, and we did this Moroccan type courtyard display, and it was something different that they'd never really seen before. Anyway, we won the awards for that, and then we thought, oh, you know, we're working really great together, let's go into partnership. Unfortunately, we had very different goals and I guess values for where we wanted to go in life, and we were at different stages of our life as well. And so that didn't work out. After an incident had happened, I was like, you know, that's a deal breaker for me. Even though this business was really great that we had created, and it was kind of like my baby. I didn't have kids at that time. It was a very hard decision to leave because I'd put everything into it. And then at that moment when I did, and I was still young, I think I was 24 or 25 maybe at that stage. Can't really remember. Maybe 27. That was when I then approached a landscape architect firm in Perth to see if I could work with them, because I didn't have the energy or the love to then start up another business, because I'd given that one everything. I wasn't ready yet to feel that heartache again if that was going to happen again. So there's a great company that I loved here. It's called Tim Davies Landscaping, and they're a landscape architect firm and construction company. And so, I approached the owner and we sat down and had a chat, and they created a role for me. And so I got to work residential, which was great. And I ran my own design projects, and we were able to, create some really beautiful projects there. And I ended up staying there for, I think, over 3 years, which is very rare for me because I don't do well working for others. But they were so, but the thing was, I work I worked backwards to how a lot of the team did there. So I'm TAFE trained and I'm very much like self-trained as well. And I started there, when I started there, I would work in SketchUp, like a 3D design program. I'd work in that first and then do the detailed drawings afterwards. Whereas when I went into that firm, they would do the detailed drawings, so I saw the plan views, and then the 3D design was like an afterthought or something that we may present, with the concept plans. But I knew working in, over the years that I'd worked from studying to having my own business, many of my clients were women. And I think it was great. I think I was so busy so quickly because I was connecting with with women a lot more in terms of how I presented my design. It was a lot softer, and I designed in 3D, and I found that we could really get to the essence of the design a lot quicker that way. Whereas a lot of people read plans and they can't get that feeling and the whole vibe of it. So it was kind of hard working for someone in terms of like I was different to everyone else. Again, I felt like a little bit inferior because I wasn't university trained, but I was, getting the clients, we were creating great projects. And at that time, the design area of the business, like they would always run at a loss because they didn't think they could make money off design only. So we turned that around within the business as well. And so it was kind of, I got to be myself, but then I felt weird being myself because I was different from everyone else. So, but yeah, and then we ended up, my partner and I, so we've been together for 13 years or so. He had long service leave, I think, his first lot of long service leave. And he did triathlons, Ironman triathlons as a hobby, I guess. And he got into the world champs in Montreal. And so I pitched to my boss, can I go and work part-time remote in America? Because we wanted to live in Boulder, Colorado for 3 months. This is where all of the professional triathletes train because it's high altitude. And he agreed to it. So then we moved to the States and lived there, which we loved. We were so sad to come back. This was before kids. And so I worked for this landscape architect firm part-time remote. And this was before COVID. This was in 2016. Remote work wasn't really a thing then. But I was following these online business people, particularly Marie Forleo, and she was like, how you can create an online business and all this stuff. So it got me thinking. I thought maybe I can do that. So they allowed me to do it. We had a great 3 months there. And while we were there, nearly at the end of it, my partner said, look, I think it's time for you to go out on your own again. And so he gave me that little bit of confidence to then launch again when we came back.
And so was that then the kind of the current iteration of the business that you have now?
No, it's kind of evolved since then as well. So when in my other business, before I worked for this landscape architect firm, I was kind of looking at what everyone else was doing in the market. And because, that's what I thought you do when you go into business, you kind of see what else is out there, you kind of emulate it, but put your own spin on it. This time when I relaunched, I wanted to be authentically me. And so that's when I started up my landscape design studio called Slightly Garden Obsessed. I had this different name. It was very like female focused. And so that just grew really quickly, really fast. And I did that for quite a few years. And then just recently, I think last year it was, I then changed the business again to become a little bit more holistic with interiors and building design. And I guess looking at the whole entire space, interiors, built form and landscape together. And that was when Bear Carbo came about.
Now, I just want to ask you though, before we sort of talk more about what you're doing right now, so then how did you start to get your sort of first clients in this sort of, once you returned from the US, so you sort of decided, okay, I'm going to take the leap, I'm going to launch my own business again. But how did you find those initial clients? Because I know this is something that comes up a lot for people, like, how do I do it?
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting because Instagram had sort of come on the scene, I think just before, or I started to get into it just before we kind of left for the States. So that was in like 2016, I think it was. And I just started like sharing my journey. And then I guess for some reason, I think people were resonating with what I was putting out there. And I've always seen Instagram as just like an organic thing. I don't follow any rules. I just, kind of post what I feel. Never paid for any following or anything like that. I'm not an influencer, and it's not. But I think Instagram's a great tool because it is visual. And for creatives or people who love design, visual is great. And so I had just put on there that I was, had got a new name. I was relaunching again, and it was my own thing. And that is how I've always got my work. And it's just been from people that you connect with and they understand your aesthetic. And I remember, that's my dog.
That's okay.
I remember I got a phone call from a beautiful, beautiful person, Amanda Shadforth in Queensland. At the time, she was Oracle Fox, and I was watching this reality show on Foxtel, and she was actually in it, and I loved her. And I got a voicemail from her saying, "We'd love you to do our garden design. We want like a mid-century inspired." And I nearly fell off my chair because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And I think in those times where you put yourself out there, it's so scary, but I think it's so worth it because that's when the people that you truly align with come into your life, or, things happen, whether it's, serendipity. But I think if you can somehow, I guess, share what you're doing and you love, I think you'll find those people. And so that is how I guess I started getting my clients, and I had put it out there that I wanted to do national wide work as well, even though as a landscape designer, it probably wasn't, done really like that. You're quite location dependent. But people were open to it, and that's kind of how it all started to, evolve.
So can you explain for those who perhaps aren't, 100% sure, like what is landscape design, what's actually involved? Can you just give us a little bit of an insight into, a typical sort of process, or like what you would do in terms of if a client came to you, what are you involved in? What are you creating? What's the sort of the output of what you're doing?
So if a client comes to me, they may not necessarily have ever had a landscape designer design their outdoor space. Usually it's like once in a lifetime, they're like, okay, we're going to get someone to do it, and it's usually their forever home. It's becoming more and more popular these days, and like a standard service, I guess. When it was, nearly 15 years ago, it was like that. People were like, what is landscape design? I remember my mum thought I would just go out weeding. She thought I would go and maintain and weed gardens, like, I don't know, for many years. And it was even hard for me to explain it. But I usually just say to someone, it's any space that's outside of the house. So we would usually look at designing, or I would usually look at designing anything that is external of the house. So whether it be like your driveway, your entrance walls and gates, your pavements, your pools, your pool cabanas, your planting, your outdoor lighting, your material selection. So basically anything's out there. And different landscape designers will have, different things that they may or may not do. But generally, if I'm looking at a project, it would be basically everything in the outdoor space, even to the facade of the house, like the house exterior colours, the doors and windows that relate to that facade and exterior of the house as well.
Yeah. Okay. So then if you're doing it, I guess remotely as well, working with a client who's based in another part of Australia, like, would you go and do a site visit, or are you working off plans? I mean, I realize that each case is probably, different, and each scenario is slightly different, but, and what are you like creating a concept design? Are you like, what are you creating for the people, your clients?
Yeah. So sometimes there would be a site visit, whether it's local or interstate. Sometimes if it's local, I may not have even been on site before ever, and I just work from plans, videos, photos, Google Street View. There's all these technologies that we have these days, or the client will FaceTime me and they'll zoom around their spaces and garden and walk me through what they're sort of thinking, what the views they don't like. And because we are so connected with technology these days, it just feels like I'm there anyway. And it's easy for me to kind of read, surveys and lays of land and get a feel for the space through that technology. Whereas I know, some people definitely have to be there on site. And I tell you what, it does make a difference when you can be on site and have a look at the borrowed landscape, how the shadows fall, and you do get a better sense when you can be on site. But especially through COVID, that wasn't, something that could be done. But yeah, I was thinking about the other day, and some of the local jobs, I've never even been on site before, but have still created a space. So yeah, I don't know if it's something that, I don't need that within the process. It does help, but it hasn't made a difference to it. But I found, particularly through COVID, I was missing that connection with the space. So once I receive, site photos, site survey, so we'll always have to have a site survey. And then from there, I would then design the space. I'd start in 3D still. And so we'd create a base model of, if we're doing the landscape, would be the existing house. So we might just do it very generic in white or something, not going into too much detail, but plot the existing house on there and any existing features, and then I'd design the space from the ground up. And then I would then send the client a fly through of that and some perspectives, and then we'd go back and forth with the concept. Once that's approved, then I would then do the detail plans. So the plans in scale, elevation sections, detail drawings, along with the plant schedule, lighting plan, and then the materials and finishes and furniture.
So one of the big questions that a lot of people ask me, and I know many of them are listeners of this podcast, is that when you're starting out, how have you learned to navigate that process of charging for your services, particularly when you're starting out? You can be keen to get the work, you just want to get images in your portfolio, but often you still have bills to pay, so it's not always possible to work for free. Or did you kind of do that for a period? Can you just shine a little bit of a light on how you've navigated that part of the journey of having your own business?
I think it's so important to talk about this. And I remember when I was starting out, I just wanted someone to tell me what their fees were, what they charge. Come on, someone give me something. And so when I worked for the landscape architect firm, that was, quite great to get that insight. But it was funny that they thought that they couldn't make, that the design department would always run at a loss and then make it up in construction. So I come from a very different thought pattern of that. But I think it's a challenge, and it still is a challenge with fees and pricing, because I think a lot of us have money blocks or certain conditionings that we've learnt from a young age of how we perceive and see money. So I had to do a lot of work around money. And what I discovered was money is energy. It's an exchange. And I think it is a case of, looking at it as a return on investment. and not necessarily what the fee is, but more so, okay, how is this going to benefit my client? What is their return of investment going to be? And no, I should not limit myself on based on what I believe is, enough or not enough. So I think taking that emotion out of it is key. And I think that's a learned thing over time. I don't think that it's something that you just, when you first start your business, you go, oh yeah, no, this is their return on this, if I'm doing this design for them, then it's going to increase their value of their property. But it is a very good way to look at it. At the start, I knew that I didn't want to work for free. And so I've always been firm on that. I would not do projects for, for the portfolio or for the accolades. I'm not big on awards. I don't put myself into awards. The only one was ever that first one where I did the garden display, and I didn't expect to win. I did it just for the display, not to do an award, get an award. But I think it's important to have a value on what you do. And, definitely there's partnerships and things that work like that where you both gain value from it. So it just has to be an equal partnership if you are going to then, reduce your fee for certain things. But I think that's like a business transaction. At the start, I definitely wasn't charging enough for what I was doing, but I was learning. So I knew that I wanted to get real world experience. And so I knew I couldn't charge, what I'm charging now. I think it all is related to experience and what you have done previous to that. So yeah, it's one where, just make sure you do get valued for your time. Some people do like to negotiate the fee. I would say don't just reduce your fee, reduce your scope of works if they, if they don't have the budget for your full fee. And just have confidence in what you're delivering is worth that. And then maybe just charge a bit extra on top of what you think it's worth, because you will always charge less than what value you are giving, I think. Yeah.
And do you offer like a package fee? Because, if I'm imagining it's similar to interior design where, there are some people who say, okay, for this type of project with this amount of work, and you judge it on the amount of rough hours that are going to be involved. And you would say, it's for this kind of package, the whole thing, and this is all the things you get. Other people work on an hourly basis. Or sometimes people do a bit of both, like the concept design is this, but if you want to work with me beyond that, then it's a certain amount per hour after that. And then of course there's like the cost plus method or whatever, like there's different ways that you can work. What kind of model of business do you work with when you're charging?
I've always done a fixed fee. And I think for that reason, I always think if I was a client, I'd like to know what the whole cost is going to be. And then I am obligated to obviously do the work for that amount. So that's on me to figure that out and make sure I price accordingly. And it's always worked for me. And I don't think charging by the hour would work for me as well, because it's not how my brain works. I'm not like a sit down and do an hour kind of person. And so I'm just like, what, this is the fee, this is the value I can give, this is what will be delivered at the end of it. And then it's then build out in stages, so on deliverables. And that's always the way I've done it. And it just seems a bit more upfront for myself.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And it's interesting because I noticed that you have split off with the sort of new evolution of your business. You've created a new Instagram account for that. Obviously you've got quite a decent following for your current account. I'm curious as to why you've done that and why the business name change and what's the change in focus? Does that reflect a change in focus as well?
Yeah, well, it started off, so when I came back from the US, it was slightly garden obsessed. And then I kind of merged it all, more kind of going towards my name. So while I was trading as Slightly Garden Obsessed, we, my partner and I, and one of our friends who's a commercial plumber, we created an outdoor shower line. So I think this was so I must have been in the US in 2014, because in 2016 we created this outdoor shower, which we still have today, and it's sold all around the world. It's a huge business for us. So yeah, that took the name of Slightly Garden Obsessed. And then because that business, that product was going so well, we then applied it to the product, and then I kind of just kept trading under Mon Palmer. It was my name. It was my Instagram account. And then when it came up to, so I did that for quite a few years, but then I was getting clients ask about, oh, can you just look at the interiors? Or we've had an architect design this, like, what do you think about the flow from the inside to outside? And I started to get project or scope creep in terms of what I was offering my clients to what they wanted. So I was listening to what the needs were of the people that I was working with, and they wanted more than just the landscape. They wanted to feel like their spaces were connected holistically. And so that I could feel that sort of area was starting to grow more so. And my love of looking at the whole space was a lot greater than just landscape design. So naturally it just kind of evolved into creating complete spaces for people. But for that I needed a team. And I didn't want to, I'm very bad at asking for help and delegating, and it's such a big thing for me, and I work on it every day. There's so many things I work on every day. And but I knew if I wanted to continue in this space, I needed people to do it with me. And so I didn't want it to be under my name. I wanted it to be a team thing. And I also I also had a lot of changes. I went through a lot of health issues, and I was just burnt out. I was really burnt out from doing everything myself, and not being able to keep up, and just my body was breaking down. And so my partner and I were thinking about, and he's a firefighter, he's not in my business. We do the shower business together, but he's completely separate, but he's a good soundboard for me. And I just said, I'm either going to give, I think I need to shut the shop. I think I need to just, go hide under a hole for a while. And, but I didn't want to, I'm not that kind of person. I can't just sit and do nothing, but I didn't know what else to do, because I tried to find what was going on with me and I couldn't work it out. And, I guess I kind of hit rock bottom. And the meaning of Bare Carbo has a great meaning to me. It won't really mean anything to anyone else. But bare is in stripping down to, the simplicity of things. And then Carbo was when we lived in the States, we went to Cabo San Lucas for our birthdays, and we just fell in love with the architecture there. Small places, white, cactus, black steel, all the things. And we actually came back from the States and designed our renovation on our house based around this. And it was kind of like what I wanted to get more into, like a different kind of style. That was my own style. And so that's why I created Bare Carbo. So it wasn't my name. It was representative of, my journey and what I love. And then that's how I kind of created the new purpose and mission and meaning. So creating raw and natural spaces, and then bringing a team, whether they're in-house or consultants that I use. And I guess it was just more of a personal evolution as well as a business one. And then, wanting to take it into that next step of, I guess, more meaning to the designs that I create. So organic, sustainable, natural, raw, really to my core essence of what I love, and then showing people that you don't just have to have that when you go away on holiday. You can have it at home. You can have that feeling all the time. And I think we've come to I've got assessments next month, but we've come to the conclusion that I may have inattentive ADHD. And I think that these calming spaces are something that I've never really liked colour, and I think that is a lot to do with how my mind works. And because there's so much internal chaos, to have a space that, is nice and calming is just, where my heart is at.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, sometimes I've been hearing more and more people sort of say, that they've got it, ADHD in adulthood, late diagnosis. And I keep thinking, do I have it? Because there are some elements of my personality that I think, the obsessive thing, I could definitely have that. But then there are other things I'm like, I just don't know. That's not like, I don't know. So I don't think but I do keep asking myself. I'm like,
it's funny because
it would explain so much. Like, I just want to have something that explains so much about my personality.
Okay, I tell you what, if you know, you know. I think if you dug deeper. And it's funny because I didn't know it was like an adult thing, and I didn't know there were different types of it. So the inattentive one isn't like hyperactivity, even though I get super excited, but it's not that fidgety and stuff. It's more internal chatter, dialogue, disorganization, creative mind. There's so many elements to it, and everyone presents differently, obviously. And that's why I'm getting a professional assessment of it. But I do tick all the boxes. But it can, I guess for me, I felt like my life then made sense, because I've always thought I was a little bit different from everyone, didn't feel like I really fit in, and would always look at things in a different way. And look, I don't see it as a bad thing. I think just now that I can understand it and understand myself and be a lot kinder to myself, and then use those elements in a more positive way, and put structure in place. So it definitely has made things make sense, that's for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's from what I've heard about it, it can be a superpower. Like, if you can learn to work with it, is actually an incredible asset or strength that you can have. I have all of it except for the disorganized bit. Like, I'm actually obsessively organized, like to the point where it's like, that's a problem. but
You're like my partner. Yeah. We realized when I went on a work trip, actually, just recently, I went over east, and usually he comes with me and we take our little boy. This time we didn't, because our little boy has started school full time, and I went on my own. And so one of the biggest things is like executive functioning. So life skills, just like organization, doing the laundry, eating, like feeding yourself, like all that stuff. And I went without him and the wheels fell off. I was like, oh my God, I don't know how to, so I kind of defaulted to him kind of looking after me. And I don't want to be like that as a partner. Like, I want to be a good partner. And I want to, help him out too. So that's why I started looking into it a bit more, just so I can be the best version of myself. But it is, I've always struggled my whole life. And now I kind of, hopefully, I feel like if I can harness this, I'm going to be going into the best years of my life coming up. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, that's so good. Now, I do want to ask you, because, there is so much talk about personal brand and how, that decision to move away from your personal brand. I understand all the decisions and choices you've made in relation to how you want the business to be structured and your interest in, having more holistic approach and all of that. But there is so much talk about, how important a personal brand is and, the connection and so on. But I can also see so many benefits of having a brand that isn't a personal brand, because it's, this is like an internal conversation I have with myself a lot, because, and I'm just curious to get your take on it, because there's another part of me that thinks, well, if it's not your personal brand, then I can almost compartmentalize it differently to then if it's my personal, like for me, when something's my own personal brand, it's hard to take away the emotion out of it in terms of like my feelings about myself or how I perceived, and like all of these different things that in this world of social media and all of the things that can be complicated sometimes. And I'm just curious if that came into your decision making at all, or it was really a different decision.
I think for me, I think I did want that pressure taken off myself, particularly. And I think, I think organically I created my own brand. I didn't ever set out to have it as under my name, because I felt that was like kind of a weird thing to do. But then it has come, quite common these days now. So I didn't want to lose that, and I am known for my name. But I guess I wanted to create something that was bigger than me. And I think if you can have the two, then it's amazing, because you can use your own voice to then elevate what you're doing. And you can also pull back, if you need to as well. So for me, I'm very like all in, go, and I'm learning how to create more boundaries and take things a bit slower. And I think by having, and look, maybe not everyone wants to have multiple arms and different names and things. That's just kind of like what works for me. I think, I just wanted to create something that was bigger than me, and not because I'm going to exit out of the business or sell it or anything like that. I think it was just like a feeling I wanted to create with it, a feeling that I couldn't really get with my own name, because I think my name's attached to more of my like landscaping days, I feel like, as well. Whereas Bear Carbo is like a different iteration of it and what I can, I guess, create. So I did want that to be kind of standalone from there, because it felt like quite a big shift. I felt like I couldn't really create that shift with just using my name, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And so can you just clarify, so are you going into more interiors? Because to me, it seems like such a natural extension of what you do, and you create such beautiful spaces like your own home and environment, is that, are you kind of going more into interior design as well as the landscape design?
So we actually, when was it? I think maybe 6 months ago, or maybe nearly a year ago, we actually stopped offering landscape design as a standalone service. So our base offering, which is now closed as well, we've just closed our books on residential design, but for the last year, our offering was landscape and interiors together. And then our absolute program was landscape, interiors, and the building design. So majority of our projects now are that landscape and interior combined. And I have Em, who works with me full time. So she's an interior designer. She did her advanced diploma of interior design at TAFE. She completed that, when was that, a year ago or two? 21. Oh my gosh, time goes so fast. So yeah, and then I have some great building designers who work with us as well on contract basis. So yeah, it was a natural progression, and I love the interior and exterior space and then flowing together. And what I found for many years was there was such a disconnect between the interior and exterior designs, and so it's great to just have that consistency and flow. But yeah, a couple of weeks ago we just closed our books on residential projects, so now we're moving into boutique accommodation, so Airbnb for clients. So there's a couple of projects we're doing at the moment, and large acreage properties. And then we've got our own in-house developments as well. So we're creating an eco resort on the northwest Cape of Western Australia, my partner Phil and I. So we're actually going into business together again for that one.
It's exciting. And so can you share why you've decided to sort of move away from residential? Is it sort of the size of the projects and, obviously as a business strategy as well? Is it related to that?
We, no, we were so busy with that, and we had great clients. We have great inquiries that come through. It was more so where my heart was at. So my partner and I, we love to travel, and I lived in London for a few years. And then, as I said before, I worked for a travel agency when I came back. But I hated being on that side of the desk. I wanted to be the one going away. And so, yeah, we love staying in, boutique accommodations and like farm stays and all those things where you can relish in the design of the space. So very design-led accommodations and remote destinations. And it's just like, it feels like, how we were talking about threads and how they don't make sense at the time. I feel like everything's kind of come together. My love of travel, my love of design, remote spaces, sustainability, off-grid. So the places that we're creating are sustainable and off-grid and, have that element of, lightly touching the earth. And I just feel like it's all my passions that I completely love rolled into one. And I think the only way I can really work is if I'm 100% passionate about it. And I find that my hunger for things and my learning grows, and I research a lot and I learn new things, and I want to always expand on what I'm doing and learning. So I think, we're really ready for this next stage, and it's, it feels really natural and right, 100% scary. But yeah, I just think, we can offer a really great service and product. We put our minds to it.
And just to give a little bit of an insight into, so as you mentioned, you've got somebody working with you and it's interior design, you've got contractors that work with you. So how has your role within the business developed? What are you working on when it comes to these projects?
So I do still do all the conceptual design across the board with things, and then work with M on the interiors. And so it's with the clients up front, working on the concepts, involved in, I guess, every aspect still, which one of the reasons why I evolved the business is because I do want to take on bigger projects but less clients, because I get very confused easily and or get sidetracked. I just want to, I guess, simplify, but then really get into the detail of each thing. So we have less clients now. We work on projects for a lot longer. I guess that's still across the board in every kind of aspect of the business. Once we drop down even further, and niche down into the boutique accommodation side of it and our in-house projects, then it'll be, again, less client work, more in-house focus. And then once we open up our eco resort, then we'll probably go into even less client work from that as well, and focus on building that business and our guest experience and what we can offer in this remote location.
Now, I probably first came across you and your work through SketchUp and through you sharing SketchUp videos. And I think my friend Lauren from Salt at Shoal Bay, she maybe introduced me to your work when we were sort of doing a workshop, and she was talking about, what you create and we were talking about you, and she introduced your work to me in that way. And I know that you've got a course that you do on SketchUp. And I've actually had someone from my team, I said, you should do this course. So, we've kind of done that. And so I know that has been kind of part of your business model. And I'm curious because, I do courses and online education as well in relation to styling and interior design and the things that I have learned. And I'm curious about how much that is still a part of your business, and that kind of, it sometimes can feel a bit of a dance between, you're in this world of promoting your course and promoting your, your offers in that sense, but then you're also kind of wanting to do the other work, and, how you nurture both, or have you stepped away from the courses? I'm just curious about your take on that.
Yeah, it's such an interesting conversation because I always want to share knowledge and learnings, but also with that comes like a lot of responsibility. So when I think my first course was the SketchUp Success Formula, and it was really great. I didn't really expect so many people to do it, and it was at a time when I found it really easy to talk on stories and do videos on there. And as I've had our son and life changes, I got burnt out massively, and I felt like I couldn't show up, and that was really hard for me because I didn't want to let anyone down. So I pulled back from that quite a bit, and I wasn't advertising it or launching it because that takes a lot of time and work and energy, launching, and it's a real sales process. And so I put them on Evergreen, which is where they you can just jump on and do it whenever you're not doing live rounds, and people kept buying them, the courses, and sometimes I didn't even have them on my website. They'd find them somewhere and I'd be like, someone else people must want it. It's something that it still surprises me every time someone joins a course. The feeling doesn't change. It's amazing, and to know that you can pass on your knowledge to someone else. But I had a real battle with that at one time of so I just kind of stopped all of that. And there's so much content and stuff there, but I just kind of forgot about it. I was like, I can't show up for that. I can't do it. It just and maybe if whatever I'm going through and I get diagnosed, if only I'd known this 10, 15 years ago, it probably would be a different story, but it is what it is. And so, yeah, that just kind of ticks along. We don't really do any live rounds for the SketchUp course. Then I had a SketchUp masterclass. It was more of a condensed one of that, and I kind of was a new iteration of it. It was probably less of me talking about random stuff and tried to condense it a little bit more and focused. And so that one just kind of is evergreen, and people just jump on it whenever they want. But last year, I think in October, Em and I thought we would create the Bear model. So it's our framework of how we 3D model and then create real life renders in Lumion. Because Bear Carbo had been going through a change as well, so I used to just use SketchUp for everything. We started using Lumion for the renders and fly-throughs, and it was just such a beautiful way to represent the designs for clients. So I said to Em, well, should we make a course on this? And we created an app. So it's an online app on the phone. And we share that as well, the whole framework. And so we've been doing that since October or November, I think. We've just done a live round of that, and we have members from all over the world who have signed up for it. And we are focused on continuing that one for sure, especially as it's on an app on your phone. And we're really proud of what we've created there. So we will be softly promoting that and having that available separately. But I think we'll just focus on that one and really do what we can with that. And trying to simplify life, but there's all these things that I want to do. And the SketchUp course, so we've kind of combined the SketchUp course with the Lumion. So
well, we'll definitely put all the links to those in the show notes. And I mean, I feel the same way. I mean, there's something really beautiful about sharing your knowledge and connecting with other people. Mm-hmm. And there's so much good of it, but at the same time, it's when you also want to create your own thing, and I don't know, it's an interesting dynamic that goes behind all of this. But so I was just interested to get your take on it. So I also want to ask, before we get through to sort of the final round of questions that I ask everyone, is What, for somebody who wants to do, I know you don't just do landscape design, but you've obviously got so much experience in that. What are some of like the key considerations that you always think about when designing exterior spaces? And, that you think either things that you see missed opportunities or mistakes that people make, or things that you think like these are, foundational and that people should really think about it when it comes to designing their, the landscape around their homes?
I think, the big thing for me is aspect. So where the weather is coming in, the sun, the wind, the shade, I think it's really important to capture those little areas in your space. So usually I would ask if the client has been living at that space for a while, and it may serve two purposes. One, I may not be able to get out there, but so they can pass on that knowledge to me. And two, I think to really get a really great design of a space, you have to know what's working and what isn't in terms of the elements, to then create something that's beautiful but also functional, and that you're going to get those beautiful winter morning sunspots, or you're going to get that great shade on the pool in the heat of the summer when you're there, or you're going to get some, palm frond shadow plays happening on a wall. It's all those little things that it's not always layout. It's more so those feelings of, because of the outside space is living, I think if you can capture those life moments in the space, then that's really important. Like the sunlight reflecting on the pool and it hits the ceiling inside. That's really, for me, that's really important, all those movements and the dynamics of the space. Another really key one is visuals on the pool, especially if you have kids, making sure you can see there if you need to duck inside. I think for me that's really important, and for others. And something that'll pull you out to the edges of your garden so you can sit back and look back towards the house or the entertaining space, so that if you are entertaining, it's like a conversational area. You're using the whole depth of your garden, and outdoor lighting, definitely, like game changer. Yeah.
There's some really good tips. Thanks for sharing those. All right, we're going to get to the last insights that I ask everyone, just to get a little bit more of a feel for, your personal journey. So the first one, and more about you as well. The first one is, which 5 words best describe you?
Okay, so God, I would say manifester. Always smiling. That's not really one word, but disorganized. Okay. Smiling, I'll say. Disorganized. Oh God. Energetic and creative.
What's the best lesson you've learned on your journey so far?
Best lesson. Oh gosh. It's okay to depend on people.
What's your proudest achievement?
My son. He's a cracker. We love him to bits. Yeah.
It's very sweet. What's been your best decision?
Following my intuition and my gut feeling, and being my authentic self.
Who inspires you?
Oh, there's not a particular person, but someone who always inspires me to be better is my partner, Phil. I just adore him and just, have so much respect for him.
What are you passionate about?
Oh, so much. Life. I just want to squeeze everything out of it. Very passionate about life. Had such a rocky start to life. So any moment I'm just, so passionate about. But I'm really passionate about creating beautiful experiences for people in gorgeous locations.
What dream do you still want to fulfill?
The one I'm living right now. So we are creating this eco resort, but it's on Crown land. So it's such a long process, very different process than what I've been through before. And so it's, a dream that we're still wanting to see come to life, but we're living it at the moment.
What are you reading? Do you have any books on your bedside table or coffee table books?
Yes. So I love nonfiction, but I'm reading Atomic Habits by James Clear at the moment. And that has been really great because for my brain, like I know what I want to do, but I just can't make it happen. Like like the little things, like I can dream of like an idea and make that happen within a week, but the little habits that make such a big impact. So I found that book. I'll read it every time I go and have a sauna. I'll read another chapter. And it's been life-changing actually.
It's a good one. What are you listening to? Do you listen to podcasts or if not, music?
Yes. Yeah, we listen to music quite a lot. And I also listen to podcasts. Mel Robbins is one that I love at the moment. She's recently been diagnosed with ADHD.
Yes.
Or I think it was maybe a few years ago. Yeah. And so that one's a great one that I love to listen to.
Yeah, actually, I think she was the one I was trying to think of. I was like, there's somebody else that has not recently, but she's been
shared the journey.
She shared about it. Yeah. And I think I listened to that episode as well because I'm like trying to diagnose, like, do I have this? And I'm like, no. It's just like I've got something, but it's not that.
Yeah. See, it's funny because I listened to that and I was like, is she talking about me? I was like, what? And I was like, I felt so seen. I was like crying and laughing. So I was just. So if you're kind of like, I'm not sure, then you probably don't. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone.
Because I definitely think there's some crazy characteristics. They're not crazy, but there's some characteristics in my brain that I'm like, I just don't know if everyone thinks like I think. It's to the next level sometimes.
Definitely. Yeah. My partner definitely, he's something we don't know. It's not what I have because we're like opposites. But it's so great because we kind of like meet in the middle, but we both, like we just joke about this all the time and because we see we call them like quirks or something, but it's like, that's a thing. Like, but we just don't know what his is.
Yeah. I mean, I probably have tendencies more towards maybe OCD, like
that's my
compulsive disorder. Yeah. It really makes me feel anxious if things are not put away and
that is exactly him. But so like I need him in my life. Yeah. You're like, no. Oh my God.
Like my husband can just like leave the jar off the oats, for instance. Like we have porridge every morning. He just leaves the jar off and he walks away. I'm like, why would you just leave the jar? Or like
my God.
Like in the past, like, I mean, he's actually gotten much better at this, but I remember in our first apartment together, he would just leave cupboard doors open in the kitchen. And
Wait, who's got what I have?
I'm like, why would you just leave it open?
Why?
Like, why would you not close it? Like
It's funny because it won't make sense to another person. This is like the majority of our conversations, like Phil and I, I'm like, why would you do that? And he's like, why would you do that? Like our brains are wired so different. But I'm like, I will start something and then I'll think of something and then I'll start something. And then I look back and I'm like, oh my God, that's what I was doing 5 minutes ago. And I don't even, it's not a conscious thing. It's really weird. It's so I have to be, it's exhausting actually. And I have to be so mindful of every task I'm doing, like, to finish it. So you would be like my partner and I feel like we come together, opposites attract or something.
My thing is exhausting but in a different kind of way. Sometimes I'm like, just let it go. Everything doesn't have to be so like perfect. I mean, not that I'm not into perfectionism, but you know, like it's just
No.
it's not that important. But anyway,
I 100% get it. So he's learning how to let go of things and I'm learning how to do things. Like, it's funny. So hopefully you and your partner are the same as well, where you can learn from each other.
All right. And finally, what piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh my gosh, be kind to yourself. It's okay. You know, like, yeah, that would 100% be the thing. Like, it's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we could all do with being kinder to ourselves. I think it's crazy, isn't it? What we put ourselves through. And it's all ourselves. It's not necessarily other people.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for, you know, sharing about your journey, your business, you know, your personal story. It's, I really appreciate, you know, you being open and honest. I think it will be very helpful to other people, and we're diagnosing people or not diagnosing people, but I do really appreciate your time, and I've really enjoyed learning more about you and your journey and your process as well. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. You've just made it so easy to talk, and my intention was that hopefully it can help others, or maybe resonate with others, or help people understand that they are not alone on this crazy life journey. And I've absolutely loved speaking with you. So thank you so much for having me.
All of the links and info for this episode are at nataliewalton.com/podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so that you can get a direct download of the latest episode. And I really appreciate when you take a minute to rate and review, as well as share the love with someone you know who might benefit from this episode, or on social media. If you'd like to access a range of free resources, come visit my website, nataliewalton.com. Thank you to Jaeger Media for producing this podcast. And I would also like to acknowledge the people of the Bundjalung Nation where it was recorded, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I look forward to connecting again soon. I'm Natalie Walton, and you've been listening to Imprint.